Well, good afternoon, everyone. I need a little more enthusiasm. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, thank you. I can promise you two things. The talk you heard on VCs from Josh is better than mine, but I will speak slower. The other thing I can promise you with certainty, nobody is going to rush the stage and say you're the richest man in the world, okay? So with that agreement, let's get started. My name is Jeff Burnstein, as it said. I run this trade association, the Association for Advancing Automation, which represents 1,200 companies involved in technologies like robotics and machine vision and motion control and AI. And we were founded in 1974 as just the Robotic Industries Association. So you think about 1974, the first robots were installed in 1961. The association, there wasn't enough going on until 74 to even form an association in robotics. And now our association has 1,200 member companies, including an operation in Mexico. We do the kinds of things that you would expect a trade group to do. We put on trade shows. Was anybody at the Automate show that was in Chicago recently? I see almost no hands. Oh, I see a few. Tim. And that's the largest show in North America for these technologies of robotics and automation. So while we've got great exhibits here at this event, you multiply that by about 50 and you would get an impression of what you would see at a show like Automate. We also developed standards on really important topics like robot safety. That was the first thing we did. We developed the American National Robot Safety Standard in robot safety. And we also are working on a mobile robot safety standard as that technology becomes more important. We also have great websites that'll tell you who's doing what in robotics and vision and motion. And we have certification programs. You can learn all this stuff by visiting our websites. So what's my added value to this event is that I've been in this thing for over 35 years now. So when I first got involved, robotics was going to be the next industrial revolution. It was going to put everybody out of work. AI was going to dramatically change the world, and that was going to put everybody out of work too. There was all kinds of money being thrown at robotics, machine vision, the next hottest thing. And then all of a sudden, there was a collapse. And it happened in large part because the biggest customer was General Motors. They canceled all kinds of orders in robotics and machine vision. And everybody kind of wrote off the robotics industry. This was a failed industry. The Wall Street Journal did stories on robots painting robots, this technology that overpromised. Everybody was going to have a robot, and then it wasn't. And then our association was going to go out of business. And here I am in 1987. I'm the guy with the beard there. And I was wondering if this was even a viable industry to be a part of. Well, today, as you see, 1,200 member companies, all this excitement, thousands of people here to talk about the technologies that I was talking about 35 years ago. And it's the best time ever, I can tell you, to be in robotics and automation. So what do I spend my time doing is advocating, telling people about the benefits of automation, how it's making not only our companies more profitable, creating jobs, but it's also making our lives better. And I'll be covering some of that as I go. This is me speaking to a congressional hearing on disruptive technologies. This is me in China talking about the difference in the battleground between China and the US over AI and robotics. And as I say in every presentation, I'm a proud Michigan Wolverine, so for those of you, go blue. I'm going to go over some of the areas that we see investments from VCs going into related to robotics and automation, things like mobility and gripping and AI and cloud robotics, drones, vision. And then we'll look at what are the industries that are driving that? I mean, why are people putting money into this space? And then a little bit about what's next. So when you look at these technology challenges, mobility is one that we've maybe touched on a little bit here through Boston Dynamics and their big dog. Originally, now their Spot. Most of you, I'm sure, saw Mark Rabert give that great opening keynote. Gripping, well, you saw Ken Goldberg today talking about the importance of dexterity and gripping, so we'll look at that. AI, of course, the cloud, drones, and vision. Let's start with mobility. This challenge of giving robot legs, this is something that has plagued the industry for a long time. I mean, these were fixed machines that couldn't really go anywhere and do anything. A few years ago, as more interest in mobile robots developed, Teradyne, an American company who had recently bought a collaborative robot company called Universal Robots out of Denmark, made a big investment in acquiring mobile industrial robots. And that sort of indicated that that 148 million that could grow to, over 300 million maybe, could be something significant in this space. But there are many other players, and I'm going to talk about a lot of companies today. These are just representative samples. I'm not saying these are the leaders, these are the best companies, this is the most money that's gone into anybody, but representative samples. So here's Fetch Robotics out of San Jose, a company that's been invested in by SoftBank. 48 million they've raised so far. Locust Robotics, they're another company in mobile, looking at this warehousing space, 59 million already. They're out of Massachusetts. Go to Pittsburgh, you find IM Robotics, and they're doing mobile robots and also with an arm able to do picking. They've raised 21 million. Now, this Boston Dynamics Spot product, which is going to be on the market soon, is really interesting to me for a lot of reasons. I mean, it brings together these technologies that years ago you wouldn't have thought were possible in any kind of robot. The vision, the grasping, the mobility. When I was involved early on, there was a conference like this on service robotics, or personal robots as they were called that time. Nolan Bushnell, he was the founder of Atari, the video game Pong. He then founded Chuck E. Cheese. He decided he wanted to spend a lot of money in robotics. He was like a poor man's Jeff Bezos. Well, okay, everybody's a poor man's Jeff Bezos. But the thing is, he wanted to invest a lot of money because he thought service and personal robots was the next frontier. This was in 1984. Nobody developed anything useful forever, basically. And to this time, in terms of mobile robots, now we're seeing this exciting activity. But in our homes, where Nolan Bushnell wanted to play, we have vacuum cleaners. And we can do better than that, and we will, in part because of great advances like we're seeing from companies like Boston Dynamics. Now, gripping, again, you saw Ken Goldberg. A lot of money is going into this because no single gripper can do what we can do easily, which is pick up a product and manipulate it. So if you go to Canada, you'd find a company called Robotic. They've raised over $31 million. They've got a variety of styles of grippers. Right Hand Robotics, which came out of Harvard, they've raised 11 million so far. Back to Denmark. This Odense in Denmark has become quite the cluster with mobile industrial robot company I mentioned, Universal Robots, a leader in collaborative robots, and now this gripping company that's raised over 100 million on robot. Different styles of grippers, because again, no one style can grasp anything or everything. This is Soft Robotics. They're out of Boston. They've raised 25 million. And what they're doing with that soft hand allows robots to go into environments that we didn't think were possible a long time ago. Handling bakery items and easily spotting them on a line. These are frozen pizzas, I believe, and putting them on a platform, or in the next video slide we'll see here, is that they're able to package things. But they're able to do something that wasn't easily done or even imagined, that you could do this in food. I mean, everybody, when the industrial robot industry started, was working in factories. That was the only thing we thought was really going to happen, especially when the personal robot thing didn't work out. So this is, again, a cool hand doing interesting things. AI, this has become the big buzzword now. Everything's artificial intelligence. And our association has developed a strategic advisory committee on AI to try and focus on some of those use cases that Andrew Ng and others were talking about. We want to make this valuable outside of just software. We want to make it so that companies of any size can take advantage of these technologies in AI. So now this company here, Vicarious, I know very little about. However, they've raised $122 million and apparently are working on artificial general intelligence, making robots as smart as people. So not the kind of machine learning technology that most of the AI that we're going to look at is working on. What I do know about Vicarious is that people like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos have invested in. So that would be a company that I'm interested in learning more about. Covariant. So Peter Abeel's name came up today. He's a professor at Berkeley. He's doing things to use AI and augmented reality to help teach robots how to do tasks. And I think this whole idea of using augmented reality is something that I think, along with virtual reality, could be useful in many cases that go beyond just teaching the robots, but teaching people how to program things and teaching people how to do their jobs. Because as we go forward, we have to keep an emphasis on people in the jobs that they're going to do and teach them how to do them better. So I'd like to see us take advantage of some of those technologies as well. This is a company called Kindred. They've raised over $27 million. They're based in San Francisco. Again, these types of bin-picking tasks where they can go in, visually identify what it is they want to pick, grasp it, and move it. This is stuff that was very, very complex and hard to do, still is, but we're making great progress. Now, how about cloud robotics? Well, there's been a lot of talk about the cloud lately. Several companies working on how to apply the cloud to the robot space. These are some companies that you probably aren't as familiar with. Here's a company called C2RO, Cloud Robotics, out of Montreal. They've raised $2 million. Now, I think one of the things that they're showing that they could do is, let's say you met somebody at your office in Shanghai, and then they ordered a drink, like a gin and tonic, and then when they came to your New York office, you'd want to be able to maybe serve them that same drink. You had a robot, greeted them by name, took the information from the cloud that they wanted a gin and tonic. That's pretty cool. It won't work everywhere, because if you met the person in Las Vegas, there's no way that's staying in the cloud, because what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. But it's an interesting application. Here's a company out of Japan, $22 million they've raised. I think they spun out of ETK, I believe, in Switzerland, ETH in Switzerland. And they're working on making the cloud, making the system easier for robotics. This ease of use is a big theme. Now here's a company called Cloud Minds. And I saw them speak recently at TechCrunch. They've raised $130 million, big investors here, SoftBank and Foxconn and others. So they're doing a lot of cool stuff, natural language processing. They're moving around autonomously, avoiding obstacles. And they can do a lot of things, but they believe that by 2025 or so, they'll be able to use the cloud and use the mobility and use all these skills that they're acquiring to do useful things in our home that we can't do and that we've wanted to do for a long time. Things that allow us to stay in our homes longer if we're elderly, or some of the things that Ken Goldberg was showing, cleaning the house, making food. We want to do these things. The cloud might be a way to help us do that. Drones. A lot of excitement about drones a few years ago that I thought might be dying down a little bit, but I think I'm wrong on that. Looking at the investments that I see from 2018, $702 million invested in drone technology, and a lot of these companies are US companies. Now, one of the interesting things about robotics is that the industrial robot was invented in the United States. Joe Engelberger founded Unimation, had a hard time selling in the US. There was all kinds of union opposition. American companies had a very short-term view on return on investment, so he had to go license the technology to Japan, and so the industrial robot industry left the US and is primarily in Asia and Europe now. So it's interesting to see US companies now taking leadership roles in some of the spaces that we're talking about, whether it be gripping or mobile robots or drones. So this company here, Joby Aviation, raised $100 million. Big investors here, Intel, JetBlue, and Toyota, and their concept seems to be like if you were in your office building in Los Angeles and you wanted to go to your home in Malibu, or if you needed to get to the airport, you could call a autonomous drone to pick you up and take you there. And I think I just read that Uber is announcing that they're going to be doing this as well. So this looks like a space that, of course, I'm sure there'll be all kinds of regulatory issues and safety issues, but that's an interesting application of drone technology. Machine vision. I told you that we have an association that focuses on vision. It was formed in 1984. Vision's a key technology. Jeff Bezos mentioned it today as a reason why maybe we've had trouble with dexterity for so long, is because vision wasn't there. So here's a company out of San Antonio, Texas, Plus One Robotics. They've raised $11 million, using it to pack, see, and pick up boxes. Standard Cognition out of San Francisco, they raised $50 million. Now this is the kind of technology I think that you would see in a Payless store. You grab something off the shelf, it's recognized. It's also probably useful for restocking the shelves too. The company has insight into what's being taken. This is VO Robotics. I'm going to let the video describe what they're doing.
Today's industrial robots are completely unaware of what's going on around them. So for safety, people can't be in the same process step as high-performance robots. Manufacturing steps are either fully automated or fully manual. At VO Robotics, we're breaking this false dichotomy.
This is an example of a typical assembly task in a factory. In this case, we're putting doors on a refrigerator. Using the VO system, it's possible for a person and a robot to work together to get this job done in a very straightforward manner. Since we're monitoring the entire 3D area in high resolution, it's not even necessary for an entire person to get near the robot. It's enough to just hold out your hands.
So they've raised $28 million. I really like this idea. It's a big idea. There's millions, 2 million plus industrial robots out there. What if you could make them all safe for people to be around? They didn't have to be behind cages. This is similar to what Aurora seemed to be describing yesterday with driverless cars. Why do we have to have new cars when we could maybe retrofit them with AI that would make them driverless? So I like that. So why is there all this excitement about investing in robotics? Where's all this growth coming from? Well, everywhere in the value chain we're seeing growth, whether it be industrial applications of robots, which is expected to be a $23 billion market by 2020. A lot of that, 15% growth per year, is happening in China. It's the fastest growing robot user we've ever seen. Warehousing and distribution, not just Amazon, but companies in this space throughout the world, that's growing significantly. Retail robotics applications. I serve on a retail analytics association board of directors, and there's all kinds of activity at Walmart and Target for shelf scanning and floor cleaning, and this is one area that we're watching closely. And then, of course, this delivery, this last mile delivery. Amazon has their new cart. There's lots of products like this. If you walk around Berkeley, California, they're all over the place delivering food to students at night. One of them got hijacked the other day, so I don't know what that means, but it's a space that there's a lot of players in and money being put into it. Again, how big is e-commerce and warehousing and retail? These are huge. $4.8 trillion expected to be the size of that market by 2021. So that's why we're seeing all this demand for these products that I'm talking about. Here's a company that's one of many who are working in this space of trying to create better food using robotics. I like these kinds of applications. This is Iron Ox, because when we talk about robots, and I told you this is what I do for a living, is talking about robots, you have to be able to connect this to making our lives better. It can't just be about making stronger, more competitive companies that are more profitable. It's got to make our lives better. So we all eat. We want to have good, healthy food no matter where we are on the globe. And so companies like this that are using robot technology to create better food and healthier food, I think are doing a good thing for society. Looks very good. I'd like to eat that myself right now. So, you heard Josh talk about Auris Health, who he invested in. He said they were sold for over $6 billion, so I apologize to him. But again, surgery has been an interesting application. The big player in this has been Intuitive Surgical with their Da Vinci system. But there's lots of different types of surgeries that we want to have good outcomes from. In this case, I think they're doing lung surgery. And if we can use this technology to have better outcomes, less time in the hospital, that's a great application for robotics. Also, it's a collaborative application. It's the doctor and the robot technology working together. That's the future that we see, is people and robots working together. We don't like it when they're pitted against each other. So what's next in robotics? Well, if you look at these investments, what we're seeing is that mobile robots that allow us to move around our environment, dexterous robots that allow us to manipulate objects better, smart robots with AI, and intuitive, easy to use robots. That's what we need, and that's what it looks like the future promises. We've been in the early stages of robotics, as I said, was primarily industrial. Now we're in this sort of cooperative era. Social robots has been a tough one. If I were to show you the investments that were made in companies like Jibo or Mayfield Robotics with their Curry, things didn't turn out so well for those companies. For whatever reason, we're not there yet. What are some of the reasons? Well, we probably need better locomotion. We need more grasping and manipulation, better vision, better human-level AI before we get to social robots that are something that are commonplace in our lives, I believe. Now, what about the impact on jobs? I probably talk about this more than any other topic. Until recently, almost all the studies that came out led with the headline about how 800 million people are going to be put out of work due to robotics. That was one that came out of one of the leading consulting firms. Yet, when we spoke with them, they said 890 million new jobs would be created, so there'd be a net gain of 90 million. I said, I never saw that anywhere. I never saw a single media study or article or anything where any one of your people said that, and only through cross-examination did I learn that. So when the World Economic Forum came out last year with this, we were pretty excited. Yes, 75 million workers could find their jobs changed, or, jobs change all the time due to technology. But these technologies, robotics, AI, could create 133 million new jobs. Big net gain. That's what we believe the future looks like. Now, why do we believe that? Because the past looks like that. What we've seen in a 22-year period of our examination of what's going on in the United States, whenever robot shipments went up, unemployment went down. And when robot shipments went down, unemployment went up. Now, does that look like a job killer to you? Because it doesn't to me. So then people were saying, well, it's going to get worse as there's more robots out there. More robots is going to mean more people out of work. Well, this is the greatest period of expansion of robot use in the United States we've ever seen. From 2010 until 2018, almost 178,000 robots were shipped in the US, and yet over 1.2 million jobs were created. And the unemployment rate, which was supposed to get worse, fell from nearly 10% to 50-year lows of 3.4%. So to me, this idea that robots are job killers is completely backward. Robots are job creators. And one of the big drivers is, if you ask any of our member companies, and I imagine many people in the room, there aren't enough people to fill the jobs that exist today. Every industry sees this. In Detroit, there's all kinds of excitement about the revival of Detroit, and I'm from Detroit, and so I'm very excited by it. All these new restaurants. You know what the biggest threat to them right now is? They can't find enough people to stay in the restaurants. People will start and then leave, and they can't find enough of them. Some of these low-end jobs aren't very good. I wonder if there's ways to automate that. And I know companies are working on that. The skills gap is very, very real. Projections are that by 2028, there could be 2.4 million jobs left unfilled as a result, costing us over $454 billion in economic output. We've got to do something about this. We've got to get better at preparing our workforce, whether it's through the use of the technology or through apprenticeship programs, whatever we can do, because everybody has to come along. We can't leave anybody behind as this becomes a more automated society. Who's ready? Well, this is a study that was done by The Economist and by ABB said South Korea, they're certainly ready, Germany, Singapore, but the US isn't. They're 9th on this list. The education system needs to be looked at. We need to be thinking about, does everybody need a 4-year degree? Are there great jobs that are available, high-paying jobs that you can get if you go and get skills at a technical school or a community college? There are programs teaching people. There's a program I know in Ohio doing that. Now, you've seen this from Mark Raybert at the opening. Look at what had to go into this. If we're going to have humanoid robots in our lives. I mean, I can't even imagine how many times they must have had to film this, right? But the vision, the mobility, the AI, all these technologies coming together that hopefully, in some not too distant future, we'll be able to take advantage of this, to have humanoid robots doing the things that we want done. So, in closing, I just want to say that I think if you're working in this field, whether you're a developer of AI or working in robotics or vision or any of these technologies, you've got a tremendous future ahead of you. There's so many opportunities for you to make a difference in, not just in companies, but to make a difference in the world, to make all of our lives better as the population ages, to allow us to stay in our homes longer, to live healthier lives, to help find cures for cancer. This is really important work that you're doing, and you should be proud of that. And all of us in the industry respect what you're doing, appreciate it greatly, and so I want to thank you very much. Thanks.